Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told her I would try it just to. She's not trying to.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, that's right. Yeah, I think maybe we might be okay on that one. Sorry, we.
You gotta start getting her earlier.
Hey, that's a good spot. Well, maybe you gotta sit right here.
They have mine in the apartment.
I was lucky to get myself here.
She can't see her hand from her face, so she can't.
Good thing you're at the desk.
Yeah, he can see his about right here. He's right.
We all
Back row already.
That's what I said. I said, "You're good at
It's 10 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the blessings, Lord. We appreciate the small amounts of rain that you've given parts of the county. But Lord, you know we need it everywhere. We need more and we need it everywhere, Lord. We just ask that you be with the court today, Lord, as they go through each item on the agenda. Give them the wisdom they need in order to do what's best for the county, Lord. We just thank you for all your blessings. In your name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Good morning, everyone. Tell them how much longer are you gonna be around?
Monday, that's
Monday.
gone.
Okay, back to Missouri. right?
There.
Yes, sir. Can we call a picture for you? Yeah, this is Alan Bristol. He's our,
I'm your county relations officer for your tax.
Let me show you that picture.
Should be probably the best thing in the picture.
That lotion on fine.
Well, first I was here.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. You've got to be on the other side of it.
Well, it's my camera.
True. Okay, at this time, any person with business before the court not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the court. No formal action can be taken on these items at this meeting. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Ms. Summers.
In regards to the fuel, oil, and grease that I mentioned last time, if you look at the annual budgets, the official budgets, you can see these numbers plain as day. I'm gonna refer to the 2020 official budget. I'm gonna take precinct 1. Official, actual budget 2020 shows they spent $22,219 on fuel, oil, and grease when they had $70,000 budgeted. Therefore, they took the remainder of that money and put it in the Road and Bridge Reserve Fund. It's where the reserve fund's getting built up. Precinct 2, same, 2020. Actual, they spent $33,299. They budgeted $74,000. The remainder went into Road and Bridge. 2020 actual, precinct 3, spent $30,134. They budgeted $75,000. The remainder went into Road and Bridge reserves. Precinct 4, 2020 actual, $44,055. They budgeted $80,000. The remainder went into the reserve funds. So I know what I'm talking about when I look at these numbers. Don't ever doubt that I don't. I've also noticed that the receipts for the 2020 Road and Bridge, 2.3 million. The expenses for 2022, 2.8 million. That's a difference of $535,588. And my question and everybody's question should be, where is that $500,000? Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Judge, I'd like to make a little report on the legislative session there in San Angelo, if it's okay.
Yeah, we're going into that area now.
Okay.
Yeah, to consider inter-precinct projects, scheduling, staffing, I think that can fall right in there.
That's what I might go under comments. So went to a legislative session this last week. It's become a very, very good place to go because we have more representatives and senators and even congressmen that have shown up to this. And they talked about several things I thought was really interesting. One of the representatives, Stan Lambert from Abilene, says that they have now got a molten salt nuclear plant that they're trying to get permitted, or Abilene Christian University is working on, and they are very excited about this. Evidently somewhat less problems with regulatory as others, other than the EPA searching for lizards. Eddie Lambert, Eagle Pass, he says that there was $122 billion exported through the border there in last year, and 106 imported, which gives us a net increase over and above what was exported. Land ports, he says, needs to be expanded, primarily because it takes 1 to 5 hours for traffic to cross that bridge. You can imagine somebody coming into the United States wanting to go to San Antonio, maybe shopping or something, and spending 1 to 5 hours on that land port bridge. And so he's asking that with the $27 billion that, in the rainy day fund now, that some of that money be used to expand those bridges so that they can get traffic across it a lot sooner. I thought this was really interesting. Texas uses more electricity than California and New York combined right now. We have 1,080 people entering Texas to moving here every day. And that doesn't sound like much until you consider 100 days. That's over 100,000 people. So well over 360 to 400,000 people moving here every year. And wondering why we're talking about rolling blackouts. And so definitely our ERCOT grid needs to be expanded, and need to be talking about that. Our own Senator Perry talked about water, and that is something that we do need to have a big conversation about from here all the way to the state legislature. Because once our water is gone, what are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna move out of the state, or out of the area where there is no water. We've had farmers right here that I know of that their wells have gone dry. And so we do need to find a better way to frack. There are pits here in Scurry County that the acreage feet lost in just in evaporation alone would probably boggle our minds. And so they definitely do have newer ways to do it. Canada came up with a way to use propane where you don't have swelling of formations, and then can recover the propane and utilize it either for homes or again for fracking. So there's a lot to say about that. The EPA has named recently, because of an activist group, have named the Permian Basin as a non-attainment area using some kind of statistics from New Mexico. We know that Permian Basin, with all the wells that they have, it is not really that the air quality there is really not that bad. And so the governor, the congressman that was there, Congressman Pfluger, has just found this out, that this activist group has talked to the EPA. This could shut down all the gas production in the Permian Basin, which is the absolute Saudi Arabia of the United States. We furnish more petroleum, more gas to the United States and other countries than any other. We would be if Texas were a country, we would be number 3 in all of that. And so I just thought that would be interesting for you to know this morning. And there was a whole lot more. Anybody that can go next year should, if you're invited, and all commissioners and judges are invited to come to that, and business people as well. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate all that information. All right, anything else under precinct project schedule, Stephanie?
I'm just gonna say that we need rain. Our Cleese roads, we're losing them. They're blowing away. We're down to just rock throughout the county. We can't haul enough water. It's not even feeding. Pray for rain.
All right, we're going to go ahead and conduct a public hearing on the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant application for Deep Creek Park project. We didn't have an opportunity to do it as far as posting before today, so we'll go ahead and open that up for any type of discussion. It's the same one we applied for that we gave Lance permission to apply for. So, any thoughts or questions? And I know the next one says water project, but it's not. It's a park project. I missed that. So same thing. I opened that at 10:10. Lance, you got everything turned in and all?
Yes, it's all submitted.
Okay.
Ready to go.
I'll go ahead and close that at 10:12. Okay, court to discuss and consider Texas Parks Wildlife grant application. I don't know that we need to do anything. We've done a resolution on that and all, so we're good there. Let's go ahead and move down to court to discuss and consider recommendations from the ARP Committee on Distribution of Funds. We've got the county attorney and district attorney here, and I hate to take up too much of their time. So I'm going to pass out these recommendations. We kind of discussed part of it, an assistant district attorney. So I'll go ahead and let Ben kind of talk to us about why we're wanting to do an assistant district attorney.
Sure.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, it's a little bit more than an assistant DA.
Yeah.
It is a shared assistant between what we would propose is a shared assistant between the district attorney's office and the county attorney's office. I guess in short, people are not becoming more law-abiding and well-behaved. It's just not the way the world works. My workload within the last 2 to 3 years has increased considerably. Mike and I were discussing this just the other day. It's not so much the volume of cases that are coming to my office. It's basically how those defendants are choosing to deal with their cases once they get in court that causes more work for me. People are demanding more trials. People are demanding more contested hearings. And they're just not wanting to take responsibility for their actions and plead guilty like a lot of folks, like I've seen it happen more in the past. And so the workload for me has increased considerably. Basically, in my opinion, I know people might have different opinions about why, but I've seen a societal and cultural shift that has happened in the past few years with regard to the criminal element and how they look at authority. And so that causes the police more work, it causes prosecutors more work, and it causes courts to have more work if we're gonna hold these people accountable. And I stand firm on the idea that we've got to hold these people accountable. I've got a case I'm dealing with right now with a young man. This is just a good example of this. He's from Mesquite. He was passing through here on Highway 84 and got caught with a load of drugs. It's THC, legal drugs that he bought in Colorado and this happened in 2016. He breaks his probation this year by committing the exact same crime in Dallas. And his defense is, it's just THC. It's legal everywhere else, except Texas and about half the other states. But he does not want to take responsibility for his action. And I could say, so what, he doesn't live here. But you know what? Highway 84 passes right through here. A lot of crime happens on Highway 84. And I'm responsible for holding those people accountable when they commit felonies. I need the resources to be able to do that. I'm doing all I can, believe me. But it sure would be nice to have some extra help doing that. So that's what I've got to say from the DA side. I know Mike has his thoughts on this as well.
Well, and some of you know, our civil workload has surpassed our criminal workload in my office. That wasn't the case years ago, it is now. And so I'm covered up and that's fine. We'll get the work done. It's no secret that I'm getting older. It's no secret that at some point I'm going to retire. My plan is to run one more term, but at some point during that next term, if I'm elected, it will make economic sense for me to retire because I'll make more retired than I'm making working. Right now, there really aren't any options for you guys if I retire. The pickings are slim for folks that live here to a point and or someone to run for office. And so this may be an opportunity, if you so choose, to hire an assistant, get someone who will move here at some point to maybe run for the next opening the county attorney's office or to be appointed when I retire. It really doesn't affect me a whole lot, but I don't want to leave the county in a lurch when that happens. And so it may be something you guys want to consider.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. With that in mind, what we're looking at is using ARPA funds for 2 years to fund this. And I've got a sheet here that talks about the different costs or different cities that have got information out for assistant DAs. Odessa is 90 to 130,000 a year, 80 to 85 for misdemeanor in Amarillo. Levelland 70,000, Sweetwater 70 to 85,000, Midland 92,000, Lamesa 50 to 90,000. So that's something to think about as well.
Judge, I looked this morning on the TDCA website, which is not an exhaustive list, but there are at least 200 job openings, like what we're talking about throughout the state, just on that website. They're having trouble filling them. They can't fill them. It's not just here, it's everywhere. People are dropping out of the prosecution area of the law. So just because if the court decides to open a position doesn't mean we're going to get someone immediately.
Right.
Just so you guys know, it's a tough position to fill.
Okay, thank you. And also on the rest of the recommendations. So you'll see there's three recommendations: a new health department building for about 1.3 million, a new EMS building for about 1.5 million. The assistant district attorney for 2 years at 250,000, which would bring it about 3.1 million, leaving about 123,000 remaining for anything else. So looking at like the health department building. So if you go to other cities, you'll see they look like houses, doctor's offices, dental offices, things like that. So the idea came up, why not look at home builders? When we initially started looking at building something, it was anywhere from 300 to 325 a square foot. Going commercial, by looking at home builders, and they can do everything we've checked, and they can do everything that is required, ADA and whatever else. It's closer to 150 to 200 a square foot. So you're looking at quite a bit difference between builders. So, Ms. Summers, yes, ma'am?
On this position for the 2 years for using the ARPA funds, after 2 years, is that position gonna go away, or is he, I mean, if he's still here in 2 years, where are the funds gonna come from after that for this position?
Then it would have to be supported by the county. So that's the recommendations from the ARPA committee. We have one commissioner, treasurer, what else is on there? Health department and EMS are on there as well. So any thoughts on the recommendations for the ARPA funds?
I don't feel about spending, so.
At this point, the court's approved it.
We've talked about, building on the land there by the sheriff's office.
Correct.
Is that what you're speaking?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I apologize for that. Yeah, it'd be putting them both over there by the sheriff's department.
And, we know two, departments that are absolutely needed or have to have in our community. Just as far as EMS, I was speaking to a man that's constantly against anything that we do to some degree, and he said, I just want to tell you that I was chasing cattle on my four-wheeler the other day, and one of the cows ran over me, knocked me off, punched a hole in the lungs. He said EMS saved my life. On the health department side, if they hadn't been here during this pandemic, I don't know what we would have done. And that building is dilapidated. The place where EMS is it's difficult at best to even run that EMS from that particular place.
Sure. And they have their own issues with that building as well.
They really
The
do.
space is just the least of those.
It is. And so those are two things that I think are absolutely necessary. As far as the attorneys are concerned, we know that these are things that the state requires that we have. And if we don't plan ahead and get started on this, we're going to be without a position that's required. And people just don't want to work anymore. And as in Mike's position, they don't want to prosecute anymore. Nobody wants to be prosecuted, and everybody wants out, you know. And this is something that even with misdemeanors, people just don't respect each other like they used to. No wonder workload has gone up. They don't respect the law. They don't respect each other. And in Ben's case, you can only do so much. So I absolutely think that the community's done a real good job, very good job. And yes, and hope that we can go forward.
If you approve these recommendations, the next step would be to request qualifications for engineer or architect, and we would have that conversation at a later meeting. Yes, sir.
Hey, Dan, I'll speak for this whole territory. I've got 102 counties, most of West Texas, all the Panhandle, South Plains. Your recommendations are well in line with what a lot of people are doing. We're recommending turnkey projects that you've needed to do for a long time, just didn't have the money in the general fund to do. So that goes a long way. All those projects that you just mentioned would be covered under the interim rule, much less the final rule. And I know you guys claimed it all as lost revenue, which gives you more freedom, but you're doing exactly what we're recommending as far as one-time turnkey projects that you haven't been able to do and that are needed and will be able to be used by the community long into the future. When you're talking about it, it's very rare to have a county attorney and a DA that are willing to share an assistant. I'll just throw that in. As I was a prosecutor for 10 years, and I was a criminal DA. We did both. We were county attorney and DA mix. So I applaud them on that. And if they're willing to do that and they obviously can work together, that's a win-win for the county.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. And that's kind of been the goal, is to stay, one, under the interim guidelines, and two, to look at something that is going to be long-term that really we don't want to put on the burden of the taxpayers. And this is just basically a golden opportunity to take care of those three issues.
I've done make a motion that we accept the recommendations of the ARPA committee on the distribution of the funds to ARPA funds.
Second motion.
All in favor? All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your vote. Let's go back up to D, court to discuss and consider proposal for repair on park restroom. This is something that's been coming for a while. I went out and looked at this restroom. It's the one on southeast corner of the pond. So just south of the pond, this big one that was built several years ago. Looked at it last year, and then Lance and I went back and looked at it again this year, right after they had some vandalism and they were going to replace some urinals and toilets and sinks that had been damaged or pulled off the wall. We got to noticing how bad the cracks were. That was part of the reason we went over there, noticed them last year, and this year we noticed that they were worse. So we got an engineer to go over there to look at it, and he suggested we close it and then have a foundation repair person come and take a look at it. Talked to two companies. They said, make sure you don't have any leaks in the system. Lance and his crew did find a leak, repaired that leak, and then the foundation companies came and gave bids. You'll see that West Tech foundation repair was $22,400, and that's just to fix the foundation. The other one is from Abilene Foundation Repair, and that is to repair the foundation and to fix all the cracks that are showing up there. Is there anything else, other work that would need to be done to that, Lance?
Just finish replacing the toilets, and because we haven't finished that, but yeah, we have the budget to replace the fixtures that were damaged.
Okay. And then the next step is to see if we can get some cameras that can't be destroyed or damaged, which is a trick. This is actually 28,000. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 28,000.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Sorry. It's something that's it's a public use.
Oh my goodness, we just had our family reunion this last weekend, and there were people out there playing frisbee golf that were walking down the pads there that, I mean, all day long. And this park is utilized a lot, and people need a place to be able to go to the restroom without having to drive somewhere or get back to their car. And so I'd make a motion that we agree to this with Abilene Foundation to repair this restroom. My better judgment would have been to use the Forestry Services restrooms, which we have in both Winston and North Park. That's senior there, man. Those things are impregnable,
right?
Amazing, but they go off their foundations many times and float down the river, and they go get them with a crane and put them back. And so they're very well made because they're a monolithic core of cement. But with this situation, we have no choice, I think.
It is what it is. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Summers.
Where's this West Texas out of?
I believe Lubbock.
Yes.
I'm gonna recommend them highly for Abilene Foundation. Abilene Foundation customer service has went to pot the last couple of years. So,
Can you speak to that, Lance?
I can't, I spoke to the owner several times. He's guaranteed the work. And my thing about the West Tex, that those gentlemen were very professional as well. But we're gonna have to do we'll have to hire another contractor to do all the border work, to fix all the seams and all that. So that's gonna be additional money on top of that 22,000. So.
Sorry, it's 28.
Abilene,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
28,000. Yeah, and the other one was 17.5. So it's 17.5.
And they said they're gonna warranty, they'll warranty the work.
How long have they been in business? Do you know? Is there an older company or?
I'm not sure, I can look into that, They've been around quite a while. They do a lot of work here in Snyder, I know, but.
And references from them?
No, we actually used them at our house there in the park about 8 years ago. And
No problem?
they did a fine job. It's expensive, but it's all expensive.
Yeah. And they're doing similar work other than the tuck pointing. They're doing similar work as to foundation work that what West Texas was talking about doing. The
They-
same amount of piers.
Yeah, it was very similar. Yes, sir.
If you look at this map though, West Tech is all on the outside of the building,
Yeah, I saw that.
and the other one has some in the center.
Cut through the foundation and pour some cement.
Yeah, and it's inside the walls, actually digging down inside the chase, putting some along there. So there is some differences, but
So actually doing more
yeah,
to hold the building.
yes, sir.
I'm looking at the reviews right now, and they're 4.0 out of 5 stars. Pretty good review. There's a couple in there that are 1 stars. But always gonna be. So, was there a motion?
There was.
You made the motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor? Okay. Court to consider approval of state of Texas Medicaid provider surety bond continuation certificate for EMS. They're required to have this for Medicaid.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Does it make a motion that we can approve the state of Texas Medicaid provider surety bond continuation certificate for EMS?
All in favor? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go to H, this court to discuss and consider request from the Scurry County Appraisal District for funding of aerial imagery of Scurry County from Eagle View Technology Provider. Hi, Jackie, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. I use pictometry a lot,
Yes.
a lot.
I was gonna start off by letting you all know that our use in the last 12 months has been 40% of the total use and the amount of images that are brought up by emergency services, by the court. And we had a total of 23,385 views in the last 12 months. So it's a very 23,385 images, I guess I should say.
That's all. That wasn't all me. We got a lot, but not that much.
They were us when we were changing all the redistricting.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
that was a good help, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Judge and Commissioners, I wanted to provide some insight into this agenda item, court to discuss and consider request for the Scurry County Appraisal District funding of aerial imagery for Scurry County from Eagle View, a technology provider. And this is just simply also to work with the provider that we have. Certainly, we would go through and have bids, make sure that everything was agreeable to the units that participate in this. And whenever it comes forward in our budget, of course, it's split amongst all of the entities. The schools just simply don't use the technology, not that they might not in the future, but this is something that is very critical to the county and the city and the appraisal district and tax office. I hope you'll consider this as an initial discussion on the longstanding funding of the aerial photography. In early years, the city would support the cost of the city flights and other entities shared in the remaining costs, with each flight paid in 3 installments. It is not the appraisal district's intent to ask Scurry County to absorb the $88,730 cost for the next oblique aerial photography flight, which, that's spread out over a 3-year time period. That's pretty consistent to what we've paid in the past. As far as the consideration that I had mentioned to the judge was just that I had attended a NACO webinar concerning ARPA funds, and it talked about the expense concerning aerial photography for infrastructure needs and, of course, health and safety methods. I understand the taxing units have received ARPA funds as well. The other taxing units. Previous county aerial flight photography contracts in 2015 and 19 have been heavily utilized by Scurry EMS, Snyder and Scurry County Fire Department, Scurry County Sheriff's Office, and the City of Snyder. And the City of Snyder has been supported in the past in paying some of the allocated fund outside of our budget. And so I am in talks with them as well. It was simply my concern in this particular time period to take on a multi-year contract, which the contract's for 6 years, 2 flights. And that second flight could potentially go away if needed, but the needs that this photography meets are really critical, and I believe will just continue on. As far as the appraisal district taking on a multi-year contract at this point, all of our reserves are exhausted from the litigation. And so I take that very seriously in taking on a multi-year commitment on our own, even though the board, of course, makes these decisions and certainly consults with you all. Looking at this first payment, if we were able to utilize outside sources for this first payment, we can gradually get that integrated into the budget for future years. I just simply, as chief appraiser, and I'm very hesitant toward doing multi-year contracts simply because of the trials that we may be looking at. We have the trial with your attorney where you're suing the appraisal district in Kinder Morgan. That's in the works, and due to scheduling, with the judge, that's where we're at that particular point. We've spent over $86,000 so far in that taxing unit challenge. And then as far as the Kinder Morgan lawsuit, which was initiated by Kinder Morgan in 2019, we've got 3 years, probably another 4th year. And the 2019 trial was the decision was overturned by the appellate court in Eastland. And so they expect us to have another 2019 trial. We're appealing that with the Texas Supreme Court right now. However, if we do have to have another trial, that trial was over $400,000 in itself. And certainly doing it over won't be that expensive. But whenever you look at the fact that we'll also have to try 2021 and potentially 22 and in future years. Right now, we're getting into almost 10 years in this litigation with the taxing units looking at 2013 to 2018, and then the Kinder Morgan initiated lawsuit being 19, 20, 21, and 22. And I just, I know that the costs involved in that, when we're going to be asking the entities to share in that, all of the entities, is the utmost priority right now. And so that's why I'm really hesitant toward any multi-year contracts to add to the costs that we're already incurring. there is certainly a need for this aerial photography on the appraisal district's part. We've maintained a confidence interval at 95% or above for the state on our market values. And so we've not been in a grace period, or the schools have not been penalized on funding in the past, I don't think ever in this area. And these aerial flights have been going on, I believe, since 2010, with the appraisal district specifically participating from 2015's flight and 2019's flight. Should the aerial photography not continue, it could create a risk in our community of houses not being on the, listed or evident on the aerial photography, and certainly can affect our work. There's a change finder feature that we utilize greatly from one flight to the next. It will highlight the things that weren't there in the previous flight. And so that's been a tremendous asset to us. But again, it's certainly not my intention of the county, only be involved in these flights. It's something that we want to see happen across the board. It's just that with the litigation costs that I'm asking the school districts for, especially the smaller ones, I try to do what I can to be sure that we're planning ahead and we're being diligent in committing to future years. Thank you for your time.
Talk about some of the benefits that you have because of aerial photography and not having to have additional boots on the ground to go out and do these things, the types of measurements that you are able to do, not only highlighting new buildings or homes or whatever.
Yes, sir. When we have, and certainly we do have our appraisers to physically go out and inspect where they can. But it's an excellent follow-up tool. And where we have purple painted posts, and do not trespass, or you don't want to go any further kind of signs and lock gates, it's just simply not possible. And we have a great deal of improvements in our rural areas that are under lock and key or a sign of that nature. And I'm not going to endanger my people, even if I ask the sheriff's department to come, and it just simply doesn't make sense to put the property owner in that position if I can go ahead and measure off of the aerial photography. And because it's oblique photography, I'm able to get very accurate measurements on the property. I'm not just able to see it from the air down, but from the sides, I'm able to see in the back of the house. It's just a really excellent help to make sure things are fair and uniform to everyone, because obviously no one wants to pay somebody else's share because we haven't been able to get out to that property and it's not on an aerial photograph, so we don't even know it's out there. Even with 911, I think they truly appreciate the work that we do, and sometimes we're able to bring information to them just as they bring information to us. So it's a really good partnership in that respect. When I last checked with Lynn Sessions at the COG, he did not know of any funds that would be available from the COG to subsidize flights. But certainly anything like that we can do, we take advantage of. We utilize any kind of public domain aerial photography that we can, but it's so helpful for us to have our layers, for us to have everything that we need, and for, the infrastructure layers, anything that you all use it for, to be there.
Can other layers be added?
Absolutely, absolutely. I just love that, you can drive a point and have those coordinates. I mean, it's exact. It's so helpful. And when you look at the, even the safety issues, in being able to perhaps, plan roads, you've got the elevations, you've got the watersheds, you've got so much available to you if you use it for that.
So I know that when they come and evaluate your home after you've had hail damage or fire or anything like that, they use similar software. Do they use our flights for that? Or is
They
it something
don't,
different?
and I guess their companies, utilize whatever they can. I know a lot of, companies try to use, Google, for their, information, but once again, that ability to, have the rights to that and be able to layer on top of it and then be able to share it. Anything that's on Google, we really don't have a means to be able to take a picture of that and put it on our website because we don't have a copyright to it.
Sure.
So, we have to take our own pictures or we have to have those slides for the pictures.
Any other questions for Jackie? Thank you.
I appreciate your time, thank you.
First installment, $29,577, correct?
The first payment, that we are estimating utilizing what, Eagle View has provided is, $29,577, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, court to discuss and consider items and amounts in each line of the proposed 2023 county budget, including possible votes on individual budget lines and items, and whether amounts or items should be included or excluded from the proposed budget. At this time, what I'd like to do is if the public has any questions or thoughts on what we're looking at, go ahead and express those now, because once we get into the discussions, unless you're called on by the board, by the commissioner's court, we'd like to keep those to the commissioner's court at that time. So are there any thoughts or questions from the public on any of this? Ms. Summers.
This is titled 2023 Budget Requests per Department. This is a wish list. It's not needed. There's nothing on here that relates to inflation. None of this is needed. The only things that should be approved are the two things in precinct 4 that he suggests being paid for out of the R&B reserve, and I agree 100% with that. It's obvious there's, Krista, do you know today what the amount is in the R&B reserve?
I'll have the report to Commissioner's Court next week.
I sent you an email yesterday asking
Yes,
for that amount. So
Yes.
you don't know it today.
I'll
You
have
didn't know it last week.
I'll have the report to Commissioner's Court next week.
I'm suggesting that you do, Jeff, keep wanting that from the reserve fund because that's the only way you should get it. None of these employees that you're requesting are needed. They're wanted. There's a difference. Some of these departments, their workloads have decreased. They have. As far as this cybersecurity, let's get the IT department to put it to where employees aren't surfing the internet and causing viruses. It can't be done. So these new employees, they're not needed. They're wanted. It's on the wish list. I do have something to say about pretty much every one of these line items, and now you're refusing me the opportunity in an open meeting to say anything about them.
Ma'am, Ms. Summers, this is an informal discussion for Commissioner's Court. We will have a public hearing before we adopt anything.
Okay, so you can expect my input then.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Just got an email from Judge Cooley. She sent me a letter. I'm having it printed for each of you to look at for the bailiff position. Okay. All right, so we'll start with where we were kind of last time, some of the information I gave you. Looking at 2021's adopted tax rate was 0.5361. No new revenue is 0.3863. Voter approval is 0.4805. If we went with a 0.4800, we are between where we need to be. There are many requests throughout. Mine is bond renewal, Commissioners Court training. Those went up. Others in Commissioners Court, do you want to discuss anything for Commissioners Court or County Judge? No? County Clerk is requesting an additional deputy to include benefits except insurance. Well, the insurance has been since figured, I think, to some extent. Voter registrations are due this year. That's required. We have to do that, and an increase in maintenance agreements. So any thoughts on the county clerk's additional deputy? Do you want to speak to that?
As you all know, I had the other deputy several years ago, and I agreed not to fill that position back then. But due to, of course, as Terry calls them, unfunded mandates, due to scheduling of people, I'm trying to work my employees to where that they are receiving more training. I feel like training is important for them to be able to do their jobs. And it puts the office in a bind. When you've got some gone for training, we've got some that get sick. It leaves one person, and one person cannot do that office by themselves. It's just not possible. It puts a strain, and as y'all know, by the times that y'all have seen my minutes, I stay behind. I spend a lot of my time having to be out in the main part of the office, helping, which I don't mind. I know that's part of my job, is to help. But it puts me behind on my state reportings. It puts me behind on my minutes. It puts me behind on some of the other things that I'm required to do with all of the different positions that I do hold. There's been vital records are up with the state requiring birth certificates before you get your driver's license anymore. It has increased our birth certificate sales, so it makes it where we're having to do a lot more work. And I just feel like that if I had that person back, I would be able to then, when I have someone who's sick or has a sick child or we're at training, I feel like then my office is covered and will give me time and more to catch up on what I need to be getting done.
Thank you. Any discussion here?
Yeah, I just have a problem with having new people. You know, that's, you're looking at close to $80,000 a year. And that's gonna be an expense that never goes away. Excuse me.
Okay, so that's what we need to discuss further. Anybody else have some input on the clerk's additional position? Okay, we'll come back to that. Non-departmental, there are some increases here. Emergency, well, a lot of them are quite a bit. Emergency management, there's a lot of items that are in different areas for emergency management. I think we have them stored in 5 different locations. Some of those items in emergency management are 20 to 25 years old and at this point are unusable. A lot of that needs to be replaced. If we have an emergency, we're going to be in sad shape. So I'm requesting to add 50,000 into emergency management to replace a lot of those items.
Judge, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have such as what type of equipment?
I don't, but I can get you a full listing of everything that we have that needs to be replaced. It was something I prepared for last year. I took it out before we got to this point. So obviously postage has increased, drug screening has increased, fuel and oil. This is for the fuel station. The request for 10,000 more for fuel and oil. As we discussed last week, we are over what we've budgeted for fuel and oil at this point. So it was 100,000 that we had budgeted. We're at 108,000 already. Do you think we need to move that amount up? It's been moved up to 110. Do we need to move it up higher than that?
I don't know that 10,000 is gonna get you to the end of the year.
I agree.
I will say this. That is the only line we need to have, is fuel.
What do you think that should be then?
I'll do it 20 or 25 more.
So move it to 135?
Because either, if you don't, it's gonna come out of reserves to cover it anyway. If we don't use it, it goes back.
You think 135 is gonna be enough?
Now you put me on the spot.
Yes, sir.
I don't know that it will, or, I mean, I think it possibly will, but there's more and more people using the fuel station now, other than the precincts.
Yeah, that fuel station
A lot of
was,
it has to do with, I'm gonna say the road and bridge guys. Our fires are just, we're getting where we're having to go more and more of them, and that's the closest place to get fuel, and
sure,
that's where I get fuel.
sure. And it's every department that we have that has a vehicle uses that.
It's extremely.
I say we increase it and let Sean make the number up.
Is that a motion? Because I'll second that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, hit my head on the bottom of the bus.
All right. You don't have to give me a number right now, but let's keep that in mind. Audit expenses have gone up, bookkeeping's gone up, appraisal district fees have gone up. Managed IT service and to assist Jeremy in cybersecurity, data backup and protection. So, you all know how thin Jeremy is spread. We can get managed IT assistance for Jeremy at the cost of $49,369.32 a year. Find that other email. As you know, our data backup has been lacking, as we saw recently. Have a quote to do cybersecurity backup and data protection for both the sheriff's department, jail, and the courthouse. And it was, I thought I wrote that number down, but I didn't. It was around 20,000 for both. I'm gonna find that number, but the total is about 73,549. Including what we were going on in the budget already. Which was under computer maintenance. So, we already, well, I'm sorry, all department software maintenance. So that's something, or is it? It's either all department software maintenance or computer maintenance going up in those lines to cover those. Any thoughts on getting Jeremy some help in providing data backup for all of our servers?
As I have said time and time again, there is absolutely no way that one person can have all the intelligence that he needs or knowledge that he needs to run all the different types and modalities that IT has.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a managed service, they have different ones that are capable of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to have our backups to fail. And we've seen that happen. So he has got to have help in hiring an additional employee. Even 2 people could not keep up with what he's doing and still wouldn't have the knowledge that's needed in all the areas that's needed in. And so I absolutely agree that he's got to have some help and we've had this before. And he just can't replace all of the printers and the computers and keep everybody's computer running and take care of all the servers. And I know we're headed toward the cloud per se, is just a backup data computers in some other place than it is here. People get wondering what's a cloud. Cloud is nothing more than Amazon having a ton of computers in one place or several different places, and having that information go there so that we don't lose it, we don't fail in what we have. If we're hacked or whatever, we have a backup to everything that we need. But just the need for someone that has several different types of the IT required to run any county or any software, we absolutely need. He needs that help.
Yeah, and we've talked about this the last 2 years, and it was cut each time. Well, Jeremy, if you remember, you guys won't remember this, but you two will. Jeremy didn't have vacation for at least 2 years. It's been nearly 3. He finally got out of town. We cannot do that to somebody.
No.
We need to get him assistance, and this will get him some assistance. Also on the data backup, security data backup, they would provide backup and check that backup every couple of days, or they would check the backup every day or every other day. The backup is happening every 5 or 15 minutes. What we found with the backup that we have now is that it wasn't checked for 30 days. We lost 30 days worth of data. Where if we'd had reliable backup, it would have been checked after a day or 2, and we'd have only lost a day or 2 of data. So I think it's needed.
What about that? So is this a personnel or is this just a service?
It's a service.
Commissioners, we are a small county, but we have over 200 employees, which means between Angela's office and mine, with our financial data being at risk like it was, a month's worth of data being lost, what if our entire computers had gone down? We wouldn't have been at the point we are today if that was to happen. We can't operate with just one person managing all our systems. We need an IT staff. We can't afford an IT staff, so we need a company that can manage and do this for us. But we also need to let the department heads and elected officials and Jeremy know that they can call this IT staff, ask questions, get information, whatever, especially if Jeremy's not available. So we need that communication to be open with those so that they can call and get the help that they need, especially if they're waiting on, yesterday my Excel was giving a warning. Well, with Jeremy out of town, I'm down in the water for 2 hours because my office is not working properly. I don't know what happened. I finally got it working, but Jeremy's out of town. What do? I don't have that experience. I don't have that knowledge. And I spend 2 hours trying to fix it. That's 2 hours that I should have been working on payroll. So with this, we also need the communication to know what that contract holds so we can know who to call.
And the plan that was presented is a situation where Jeremy can handle any hardware But any technical issues, you can contact them, and they'll either log into our computer or walk somebody through the steps.
Is that
And
24/7 support?
24/7 support, yes, sir.
He needs to send out an email when he's going on vacation, because I've been texting. I had trouble and I've been texting him. He's been texting back. I didn't know he's on vacation.
Same here.
I hate that I bothered him.
So
He
what kind of
answers.
service?
That's the thing.
You don't
He
have a
answers back.
choice. No, as to the rest of those lines, Judge, either you're gonna take that out of reserve because the postage is up.
Right.
Drug screening's up. Audit expenses are up. Bookkeeping's up. Appraisal district fees are up.
Property insurance.
Delta or property insurance, it's all up. Some people think we don't have any inflation, but there it is.
Auto insurance is up. I'm gonna touch on the museum. So we have given the museum $45,000 a year since 1974. They're requesting additional. They've asked for an additional $5,000, but they've also asked for another $2,250 for a printer that they purchased, and that printer will print large canvas screens, pictures, which I have a few down in my office. If you have seen those, that's some of those they've done. So that's where that additional comes from. And rural brush trucks, they are having more and more wear and tear. They've exceeded their budget this year. They've requested more for those trucks.
With this drought,
Right.
we're gonna see more and more use out of those. And if they're broke down, it's hard to fight a fire with a broke down truck.
Any thoughts on any of this before we move on? Anything you want to leave, take out, or change? Okay. District Court, $45,000 for indigent defense. Now, when we went with the contract with an attorney for felony cases, it was for felony criminal cases. Somehow, all the other civil cases got overlooked for indigent defense, and that is a required cost for us. Unfunded mandate.
There you
go. So we're looking at $45,000 for indigent defense for district court, and an additional $800 for the interpreter.
So whenever we're talking about the county and their budgets, and you talk to the state representatives, senators, governor, House Speaker, whoever, might want to talk to them about the facts of them. They say they do not have a property tax. This is a property tax through the back door, because they're telling municipalities, counties, hospitals, colleges, whoever, they're telling them, this is a good idea that we came up with this legislative session, and now we're sending it to you. You make sure you implement it. We're not going to pay for it, so you are. And if that's not a property tax, who's paying for it whenever it's that way? If it's not coming out of property tax, I don't know what is. Whenever the state doesn't send the money down, they got $27 billion in rainy day funding. They need to, because they do it every session, and they're about to go back into session this coming January. And I guarantee you, they're going to be some good ideas that they're going to send down to us. I've seen these indigent defense, they're $600 a whack. And there's lots of them, and they're going to go up. And so we need to be talking to our representatives and our senators, governor, talking to them about, not about counties and cities that are causing all the problems, but about them having great ideas and then not furnishing the money. And they're going to, I tell you something else, they're absolutely working to stop us from representing you. They want to call the association, Texas Association of Counties, they want to call them a lobbyist. And they want to tell you that that's a lobby, and we don't want county commissioners and judges to call down here, or other elected officials and talk to us about stuff, or come see us and talk to us about stuff. We want to stop that, and they almost did this last legislative session. So if we're going to represent the people of this community, you're going to have to help us. We already had one representative caught on tape by Texas Empower saying that he hates cities and counties and that we're the problem. Well, whose budget? Who makes the budget for schools? State representatives, the senators, they're the ones that make those budgets. It's right there in their process. And you go to the right page and you'll find out that your appraisals are going up by them. They shall go up. I've seen it, 13 and 14% on that biennium each year. Well, that's artificial. And then you talk to them about it and they say, no, that's not true. We don't do that. Well, you can show it to them in their budget. They do it. And so they used to pay more than 50% of the educational budget of the school budget. They're at 38 or less now.
They used to pay about 65%.
Okay, there you go. And so we've got to have people that will stand up for your community and say, we want our elected officials to visit with you. Whenever I first came into this county and won the election for commissioner, I could go down there and I was respected. You are not respected anymore at all. It's changed. I mean, we got a bunch of freshmen down there and they don't think much of you at all. And they'll blame everything on you. But if they'll pay the educational budget for our schools like they're supposed to, your taxes will go down. And I was proud to hear the governor, he was there at the legislative session on Thursday, and some of the senators saying and representatives that they're going to buy down the tax rate as they did about 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, on schools. Just like, they brought it down like 50 cents. And they're saying because of the money that they have in the budget, they're going to do that again. I don't know how much, but that's something you can talk to them about as a citizen. So think about that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further thoughts or questions on district court? Okay, district clerk, Candy, you want to talk to your increase in education, communication, travel, maintenance agreements, just increasing
Which
costs?
is basically to cover gasoline to and from conferences and trips to the annex, trips to the post office, trips to the bank.
And your maintenance agreements has gone up? The cost in maintenance agreements has gone up for your, there was an increase in that line. It wasn't much.
I was supposed to say, with us moving back to Tyler.
Yeah.
That's gonna be kind
Flexible.
of flexible.
Okay.
Different than what I guess what we're used to seeing.
Okay. Anything further you want to discuss?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on the clerk? Okay. You want to speak to yours? And I think the only thing that y'all had increases in travel. Both did. You're requesting, yes, ma'am. Sorry, Ricky.
Yes, travel.
So you basically, you're doing more travel than you were inside the county.
Yes.
And the cost has increased.
Just for instance, I came up here at 11 o'clock this week already at night to sign a blood search warrant because we couldn't get it to go through on the computer.
Right.
So it's just back up. Sometimes I make 3 trips to town and with gas and, all the increase.
And you'll go to all the inquests.
Yes.
throughout the county.
And I've already had 14 of those this year. And usually I would have 14 for the whole year.
Right. Yeah.
About.
And that's just one of you. The other, there's 2. And I've done 1 or 2.
So, yeah, that's why I've asked for that increase. We haven't ever increased it since I took office, so.
Okay. Any thoughts or discussion on travel for JP1 or JP2?
Well, JP two, existing. Not so sure about it. Oh. Well, that's where I'm at. I don't see where precinct one's JP is within the city limits, and it's not a very big area. And, I myself have been on several fatalities in the last 10 years, and she's the only one that I've ever seen out in the county.
Do you know how many Judge Martinez has done? How many inquests she's done?
Almost as many as I have this year.
Okay.
She's just right there too. I mean, granted, hers, most of them are right here in the city limits, but she's had almost as many as I have, if not as many.
Right. It's usually pretty split on
Yeah,
those numbers.
it
in
is.
that aspect.
The only difference is, I have to go up to Fluvanna and out to the lake and no telling where, but
She does have some on the north end,
up north.
outside of the city limits.
Yeah.
So what's your pleasure there?
Like I said, Ricky needs it. I agree.
Any thoughts from you two?
Not this time. I'm gonna do some more research.
Okay, district judge is requesting, new carpet. It's been there a while, it's got some use, she's requesting a change in it. Any thoughts, questions? They're also requesting a line, for a cell phone for, the court coordinator. I didn't put that on there, but it is there in the budget book. Any thoughts? Okay.
She said that she uses her phone a lot for county business. And so we've always allowed the folks that do use their cell phone for county business to get paid for it.
A lot of times she might be in Borden County or away like today, and they're using that. Court reporters asking for cell phone line. I think it's the same situation for you, Terry, isn't it? You're away from the office, or they might be away from the office and texting or calling back and forth. District attorney, that would be the, and that number's gonna be about half of what that is. So any further discussion on the assistant DA? Tax collector, postage has gone up, education and training's gone up, maintenance agreements has gone up, and requesting $6,000 to replace the computers in the tax collection side. Okay. And you have four of those? And you can't just replace one, you've got to replace them all.
Well, it's better that way. I know y'all like to spread them across and do it at different times, but whenever we go into doing the computers and the collections, it's really hard to do one at a time.
Okay. Any thoughts, questions on that aspect, on tax collector? Okay. For IT, a new travel expense line with $1,000 in it. Jeremy's the only one who uses his own vehicle that doesn't get any kind of paid for it. Doesn't use fuel from the county, doesn't get paid for it. He uses his own truck and he probably travels more than majority of us. So adding that line. And then IT supplies. Yeah. Maintenance. Todd, you have 7,000 in there, but I don't remember what that was for under capital expenses. Do you?
No, off the top of my head.
It's been a minute. All right.
7,000?
Would
Yes,
that
sir.
have been for the grease trap at the senior center?
No, that's a different one.
Okay.
I've got that under the senior center.
I had other things on my mind, so.
Yes. No, I understand.
There you go. I would like to get replacement tanks, expansion tanks for that hydro system over there. Definitely need for the boiler. It loses a lot of that treated water every year.
Where's that at?
At the annex.
At the annex?
What I could do is since I'm having a hard time finding a part-time worker anyway, I could do take that part-time money and use it for that. I don't want anything to happen to that boiler because it's losing all its treated water.
Okay, I'm not seeing a sheet on what that is.
I didn't put it.
It was just an increase. Is that what you were thinking, Robert? That boiler?
I can't figure what that's saying.
Okay, we'll come back to that. All right, for the jail, remove 3 jailer positions that have not been filled, add 1 dispatcher. There was a decrease in the food budget, is that accurate? 25,000 less than before?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
I thought so. Medical fees have gone up, and then 5,000 to replace the cameras that are obsolete and you can't find parts or replacements for.
No, we can still utilize the existing wiring. There's a conversion kit for the cameras. But, I mean, as you know, the cameras are mandatory by the jail commission. We have to have them, so they're absolutely obsolete. They were put in, they were obsolete when they built the building.
Right.
Right after we moved in, they had already become obsolete, so that's how old they are. But we can upgrade. I've got 144 cameras, so we can upgrade it. I mean, I'm using some of the commissary money as well, which we can do that.
Mhm.
But then I'm trying to subsidize a little bit of that with this to move it along a little faster.
Right.
So,
Right.
it'll just be a process. I'm not replacing all of them. I'm just basically doing it as they go out and the lenses go bad and that kind of stuff. So I'm not just doing it all at once.
Okay. And we added 3 jailer positions in case you hired, or in case you brought in more out of county
Yeah, in the
inmates.
previous budget.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, our numbers just didn't, our out of county numbers didn't support that, so.
Right.
I didn't hire those positions. So
Right.
they're budgeted, but they're not filled.
Okay. And can you explain the need for the 1 dispatcher that you're requesting?
I'm gonna let Savannah speak. Our call volume has went through the roof as everything else has.
So yeah, our call volume, is pretty increased, and we don't just answer for emergency situations, we're answering for anything that the public deems they may need police, fire, or EMS for. As far as numbers that I can pull from iDocket, we're averaging about 30 to 40 calls a day, and that's just call for services. So for instance, if I get a vehicle accident call, I only document it 1 time, but that doesn't mean I don't get 10 or 15 calls for that vehicle accident. We are also one of the only counties in our 18 county region that provides pre-arrival instructions. So we're required to have 2 dispatchers on duty at a time, because if I get a call for someone that has a medical issue that I may be needing to send EMS to, they're going to stay on the line and provide those pre-arrival instructions to, if it's providing CPR, if it's providing instructions for someone that's having a seizure. So that ties up that dispatcher to remain on that line with that person to provide those instructions. Just like everyone else is dealing with, we're also getting additional requirements from the new Senate bills. They just recently required that all dispatchers be CPR certified on top of a telecommunicator course for providing these CPR instructions over the phone. That's something that we already do, but they will not allow us to, our training to be an equivalent. So that's an additional 8-hour class that we're trying to do. They also increased the basic telecommunicator course from 1 week to 2 weeks, along with all this additional mandatory training that we have to do. So with what we have and the requiring 2 dispatchers on duty at a time, we are stretching thin to make these deadlines, and we are also, sickness, COVID. We have had to have coverage and long hours and 12-hour shifts just to make sure that we have the coverage to make sure that the community is, and the responders are kept as safe as we can keep them.
Lots of overtime.
Yes.
I spoke with Kirsten, we were 60 plus last year, or around 60.
Yeah, last year they had about 56,000 in overtime. That almost sustains a dispatcher.
Right.
You have 11 dispatchers currently, one being Savannah. Her workload has increased terribly just with the personnel things that are going on at that office. And what I have seen, that is, I also recommend they need a new dispatcher.
And I will also add that I am actively trying to do things to help, like with the training. So in November, I got accepted to one of 12 spots to become a trainer for a mandatory course that I can provide to us that will keep us from having to lose dispatchers for multiple days at a time to travel out of county for long distances. And so that we can keep them here locally to provide that training here. And it'll also be training for our jail staff and deputies as they need it. So we're pursuing things to try to keep it as contained to decrease the overtime
But
and
that
things like
also
that.
means she's less in dispatching. So that means they're even more short, moving her to more of an office position to provide those services.
And then they also do field calls for, like, with the courts, we also enter warrants. So any warrants that are issued from the courts, if it's needed to be put in the state and national database, we are the ones that enter it. So we're communicating in constant communication with the courts, phone calls through them to make sure that we have the right warrants, the right charges. If these people get arrested, dispatchers responsible for making these follow-up calls of what their bond amounts are set to, where the bonds are located at, when we need to go get them. So there's a lot, besides call for service volume, we do a lot of phone calls throughout the day for follow-up coordinations, for warrant coordinations with the courts, protective orders. And then there's other things that I've spoke to the judges about a little bit, is like bond conditions. That is a new thing. And bond condition reporting. So there's a lot of other clerical work that they're involved in that isn't necessarily seen.
Any thoughts or questions on? Okay, moving on to the sheriff. Deputy added to include all benefits. And this would be the deputy, the bailiff. Good night. All right, you've been given a letter from the district judge that explains her thoughts behind having a bailiff up here. As a side note, we are probably the only district court in the state of Texas that does not have a full-time bailiff.
Judge, on this, it says except for insurance.
That's the amount that's here. I didn't have the insurance numbers, so that's the cost of the bailiff plus everything else that goes along with it, other than the insurance and that. I may be inaccurate on that. But all the numbers in the budget are correct.
Ernie did it for years without one. So full-time.
True. However, I think that was lacking personally. Not him. I think family court is very contentious. You have people that come in that are getting their kids taken away possibly, once that decision's made, and motions go through the roof, and those are the times that we don't have a bailiff. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've had 2 or 3 instances where we have needed a bailiff and we did not have one.
She has some bullet points there. I think we would all do well to read. this guy's not just sitting there
Right.
all the time in court waiting for someone to be a bad actor. He's actually assisting in a lot of areas there for families and making sure people are at where they're at when they're where they're supposed to be at. And aiding, even going to the jail and helping there. So keeping the court moving, everybody knows that dockets are full and the possibility of getting things done quicker seems to be that it would, that would be something that's been needful evidently for a long time, the way she runs it.
And they wouldn't just do district court, they would do county court as well. So the need to bring another deputy over and take them off the streets would be eliminated.
Haven't they also been, might be holding district court in 2 different places at the same time? I mean,
Yeah.
here and
Yeah.
up there as well.
Right.
No, it's not real often that happens. And my office will still support that if we needed more than one. It's not a problem.
The discussion was had that if there were 4 or less inmates that needed to come over to the jail, the bailiff could pick them up in the morning or in the afternoon for that docket and bring them over rather than another deputy. Yeah. So it would still be a deputy under the jail, under the sheriff's department, still report to him, just assigned to the courthouse.
I think the position is something that's needed.
But didn't have an issue just a few weeks ago about somebody that became a bad actor in the courtroom?
Yeah, pretty regular.
And in the hallway also.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always an argument that breaks out in the hallway, and I used to be pretty brazen to go out and say, do I need to get a bailiff? But these days I'm leery to step out there. I don't have to.
Yeah, it's not usually criminal, it's usually family.
It's usually family.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Wow.
One that was criminal, really, banging his head on it.
Our felons are pretty well behaved.
He was banging his head on the elevator door and screaming and all
Right.
of I think,
If it keeps doing it, it'll probably knock itself out.
open the door and have him falling.
If you continue to allow somebody to do that, even though that's a good suggestion, is there liability to the courthouse or to the county government because of that? Allowing somebody that might have a mental issue to continue to beat their head again. I mean, if that isn't a mental issue, I don't know what is.
Right.
It's become so litigant anymore. I mean, attorneys are looking for it. That's why we can't find a county and district attorney.
Right.
Because they're all litigating. I mean, they're all the advertisements you see going down the roads,
That's where the money's at.
right?
There's an increase in victim information, increase in communications as for radios that are obsolete and need to be replaced, correct?
Yeah, about those radios are 20+ years old, and it's the mobiles.
You'll see that there's a decrease in the capital outlay, but that's because instead of paying full price for a vehicle, got a grant to cover the majority of that, and that would be the remainder,
You know, we
$22,000.
received a $30,000 grant, so I'm just requesting the balance and, for that, for the truck and the radio. We'll have the trade-in as well, so.
Sure. Any more discussion on the sheriff's? Juvenile probation, you can see it's minimal, $50. Health department, increases, that's what she was looking at on there. She wasn't able to make it today. They are absolutely swamped. She said they had 63, over 60 out-of-country students at the college that came in, and so they're having to get those immunized and caught up, along with all the school kids. So she wasn't able to make it today. But she's seeing a 10% increase across the board. She's also asking for $10,000 for a security system.
So we're gonna remove that since we approved the building, correct?
Well, we could go ahead and do that, but that system can be moved over to the new building. They would just take it off and put it on the new one. Or would you rather take it off?
I just take it off.
With the bullet holes I've seen in the glass over there, I'd be prudent to get it on there sooner rather than later.
It could be a year to year and a half before they moved over,
Yeah,
and I would hate to leave them.
without security. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about her salary as well. She is not being paid appropriately.
So in her budget, she provided information to us on different salaries. All right, so start with the current salaries for the health unit. Inspector makes almost 39, LPN makes 48,700, RN makes 62,000. The department head makes 49,000.
That's not correct.
No,
No,
base salary is 49,000. Is it different?
that's correct. Apologies.
Comparing our health department to others, well, let me back up. So to go to, as an LVN, the starting pay is this is just for an LVN, is over 60,000 a year out here at Cotler. Our department head makes 49,000, so that's a big difference just to leave. Throughout the state, what page is that? There it is. Small jurisdictions, up to 49,000. They make anywhere from ours, which is 49,000, all the way up to 138,000, 65 to 70,000. Medium jurisdictions, anywhere from 85 to 115, and another one for up to 175, 117 to 175. So 9 jurisdictions, starting at 65,000.
I think that she is way underpaid for sure for what she does, and even more now so over the last 2 years because of all of the COVID mess.
Well, if I understood right, when she was hired, there was just a certain amount of duties she had to do.
Correct.
And now there's like 6, 8 more that she had to take on,
It
right?
has increased.
If her pay was to be increased, would that eliminate the overtime in the future?
Overtime from who?
From the payment from the department head that she's received since 2020. She's received overtime.
So, yeah, in the policy, it states that certain departments, if you are under a disaster declaration, that those department heads can get overtime at that point.
Okay, but that's not what I'm.
We would have to go and change that policy for any of those, anytime we're in a disaster, that's when she's getting the overtime. So we would have to change that policy.
I believe that policy needs to be changed before we agree to give her any more money.
I don't know that I agree with that, because if we're in a disaster, they're 24/7. I mean,
Well, all these commissioners are out here for a disaster 24/7.
I am too. And I was right in the big middle of that for 2 years. And it was 24/7, absolutely. So I mean, we can certainly look at that, but that would be a policy decision that we would have to make.
That some of our own group, EMS especially, went down and was helping with some of the disasters in other parts of the state and was not able to be paid because we didn't have a policy in place. That's a lot of the reason that policy is in place, so that they would be compensated for their work down there whenever they went to that disaster or during a hurricane. So definitely we need to be careful about, because that came from the state. And then they sent them a check and they didn't get to capture it. They had to send it back because we didn't have a policy in place for that. So we'll be careful about how we do that.
So what's your pleasure on the health department director? I agree, we can look at that policy. I'd want to get legal on that aspect of it. But I don't think we should wait if we want to make a change until that policy is decided on.
Who makes the call that we're in an emergency?
So there's federal, state, and then local. So if there's a local disaster, I can implement one as the county judge for up to 7 days. After that, Commissioner's Court has to approve it and continue for 30 days, correct? Yeah, 7 days after that. And then it had to be reissued every 30 days.
The lowest rate that you quoted there was
65.
65, right?
Mhm.
Well, I think it was 65 at the very least.
Are y'all looking at your base salaries?
Looking at what other health departments is what you're talking about, correct? Other health departments.
That's right.
Okay, but I would like y'all to look at the job classifications and base salaries paper from Scurry County, not just from the health unit. Yes.
This is.
Mhm.
I'll read it to our.
And that's where it will be if we do that. So you're suggesting it's still gonna be lower?
Huh?
Still gonna be lower?
I'm just suggesting that with that motion, you're putting her,
Well, I'm not making a motion.
or with
We're
that
just talking.
thought process, you were putting her above all elected officials or most elected officials, including the county judge. You are also putting her above, well, department heads, EMS, court reporter, and auditor.
But she gets all that overtime that we don't. It makes her make more money than we do.
That's all you are also, you're putting her right under, or depends when you make it implementory, you're putting her right underneath her RN. And you're paying her more than, I just suggest you know where you're fitting her in the scheme of Scurry County.
I agree.
Look
It
at,
does need to be looked at.
you look at, in 2020, her salary would actually was $101,883. And in 21, it was $66,328. For the department is.
Yeah, 2020, that was the overtime.
That's what I'm saying, that's a large amount of overtime for one individual.
I believe overall, these job classifications need to be looked at as a whole for Scurry County. I think picking and choosing departments that we have looked at has created an issue. So as a whole, I would suggest the commissioners look at and also define job descriptions on our department heads, elected officials, and employees.
Okay, so you want to look at that and come back to that one, our next meeting? Okay. Welfare is not a big change. Senior center, you'll need a new grease trap and new refrigerator and a new freezer, correct?
Currently, the reach-in freezer and refrigerator that we have, the one refrigerator, the part is supposedly ordered, so there's a chance that I can get it fixed and I won't need to buy a new one, but they're very, very old. They've been there a long time. It's hard to get parts. The freezer, two repairmen have said, it's done. They can't get parts, they can't get seals for the doors.
Right.
And then the grease trap, I've been having to have it pumped about every other month because it spews over into the grass and then it causes more stuff to spew over into the drive or the road back there. The repairman or the guy who came to pump it said it's about a 10-gallon tank. We need probably a 100-gallon tank. So, and having it pumped every other month is about $350. So I'm spending money to not fix it, just to put a Band-Aid on it.
Right. Any thoughts? Okay.
Is there any way to reduce the amount of grease?
Not if you're cooking it. That's what
Unless
it
you go
is.
with the USDA thing. Have it prepared.
Yeah.
You know, like we're doing a lot of deep frying.
Right. You want to continue going the way we are over the rest of them, or are there specific things you want to look at or discuss?
I think you've done great.
It's 11:45. Okay. I'm okay.
I need to leave a week.
All right. So the youth center, they're requesting 35,000 for additional part-time, 3,000 for program expenses. Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate it. The additional part-time would assist to get more kids in. They can keep more kids, which means they can generate more income based off of the amounts that we approve, which means they would be able to nearly be at zero as far as in the year expense. Thoughts or questions on that?
I don't have a problem with anything she does. On this, speaking of
I know
part-time,
who your favorite is.
did y'all ever come up with a solution on
Doc,
spots?
Huh?
Spots?
well, I spoke with Jason Tyler and he said he was definitely on board with that. She left, but anyway, that would be the youth center, our building, and EMS, and then possibly
Maybe senior center, I don't know.
yeah.
So-
So, and I spoke with Doc about it, and he said, yes, he would absolutely love that. Jason said that they had found a company that would do theirs for $5,000 a year, but he said if we could do this, he would be on board with that. So,
And I'm sorry, I skipped over that during maintenance and nearly got to the end. Thank you for bringing that up. So it would be a full-time position for maintenance, to include in the maintenance that would cover those facilities, because those facilities just don't get covered very well. And position would start at about 36,000 a year. What are your thoughts on a full-time maintenance person to cover those facilities? At least 3, potentially 4.
And he said he would clean it, you know, he would do however, you know, just however we wanted him to do. And we haven't let anybody into our offices. We haven't, and welfare, adult welfare hasn't, but we would if it was gonna be him, you know.
That's something y'all want me to include?
Youth Center used to have full-time maintenance, and of course, we cut that.
Right.
This would include all three,
Correct.
and I think that would be a good fix.
I would think, go ahead.
Would that also include, he would do MHMRs, I assume, as well?
No,
I think
They have-
no, MHMR is doing MHMR.
They are,
That group of people are still doing theirs.
okay.
Yeah.
I understood that.
As far as I know, they're still coming
Okay.
and doing theirs.
They're doing an HMR in the library. That would go under, who would have ultimate responsibility for this additional person?
Probably fall in my department.
When it comes down to it, if it wasn't cleaned properly.
Yeah.
There's women involved. Them two would get kicked out.
You know, he's young, he's a young guy, and he needs a little guidance, but he does pretty, he does hang the toilet paper on wrong, but I think we can turn him around on that.
See, they rolled in.
Over the top or under the bottom?
Under the bottom, we want it over the top. I just don't even know about a person that does that.
I don't think there's a woman alive that doesn't want to do that.
All right, so y'all okay with this?
It really was.
I don't have an issue.
So we'll include that. Under maintenance.
And on the subject of
We're gonna go back and revisit this.
Yes.
So let's just get it on there.
All right,
You better think now.
Yeah, on the subject of maintenance, the 7,000,
yes.
you must have been talking about what renovation we needed to do.
Yeah, it was the difference between, so you had a total of 12,000. And it was the difference from last year to this year, that's what I'm.
So that would have been the renovation on the library.
Library, okay, perfect, thank you. Sorry, I created that confusion. where are we? No problem. Parks, ground supplies increased, pool supplies increased, grounds, and that's not actually two ground supplies, it was something else.
Ground supplies?
Well, yeah, there was two areas. I put ground supplies twice and it's not that, it's something else. But you also have 151,000 in equipment you requested, and that's in the budget book. I didn't put it on here. And you've taken some out of the other two for requests, so. Let's see what you did up here.
Wouldn't it?
Yes, one was a ball field mower.
You want me to
Explain that, would you?
read them?
What you told me?
About the ball field mower?
Education and training.
Okay, so, currently right now for the ball fields, we use, reel mowers. And they're still functioning, we can make do, but my proposal is these, rotary deck mowers. They're much more user-friendly, maintenance-friendly. We have to have a company come in and grind the reels every year on the reel mowers. And that's a pretty good amount of money. You have to constantly set the contact with the reel and the bed knife to keep it cut and optimal. With this new mower, just taking the shock, take the blades off with the impact wrench, put brand new blades on. But ultimately, we can still manage with what we have. It's just,
So you don't have to have it this year.
no. I mean, we'll make do.
Did you tell me that when you're looking at used?
Yeah, and that's a used product. And we can look at a smaller unit, you know, but
And didn't you say you could trade those real mowers in on that?
towards it,
Or towards
but those companies, they don't give you substantial money on trade-ins, even though they're in pretty good shape. It's just, but it would go towards it. It's just not very far towards it. So,
So if you could make it one more year.
sure. Oh, yeah, we can definitely.
Because we're finally going to have to get to the actual needs instead of the actual wants. So,
Let me go over all of this. The capital outlay, $8,000 to buy and install pump and motor for water well at North Park. $20,000 for materials for replacing fence and painting at Winston Field and backstops at North Park. Water reel for irrigating North Park, then the mower. $5,000 for benches for Toll, North, and Winston Park. Used pickup from Sheriff's Department, they were gonna do last year, but didn't. Did you? You didn't get it?
No, they went up too much.
Right.
We couldn't.
the trading value though.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah, $15,000 for solar lights for parking lots at parks, multiple. $5,000 materials to build concrete pads for cornhole boards in Toll Park. $6,000 for swing set for kid park playground. $5,000 replacement pump for splash pad. pool.
Some of this stuff, we might could use that leftover grant money.
Okay.
As well, you know, for like the swing set and, it just has to be involved in that previous grant project. So some of that stuff might can use, for that instead of coming out of capital.
Right.
You know, cause there's 69,000, at some point we'll try to get transferred into our
Okay.
budget. So,
Okay, yeah, so a lot of that could be covered, not all of it,
no,
not all
like
of
the
it, it's
well,
gotta be Toll Park.
yeah, like the well and the
Mhm.
water wheel for North Park would have
Right.
to come out of capital.
So you could do the playground, that the kiddie park, the concrete pads for the cornhole boards, the solar lights for the parking.
Yeah, cause they're at, Toll Park, it's those
Right.
parking lots that don't have any lighting.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, I
that's-
think it's a safety factor, I mean, but we've gone years without it, so it's not, gloom or doom, you know,
Right.
like,
Okay,
Wasn't this well in North Park? I thought that was done a few years ago.
It's been drilled for
yeah,
about 3 or 4 years or longer. Yeah.
But it didn't.
Just never
it wasn't
has
open.
it was never finished.
And that park is utilized a lot.
It is,
Mhm.
very much.
so Lance, before our next meeting, if you would kind of figure out what out of here you want to use out of those funds,
Okay.
and then come back with.
I'll talk to Angela.
Okay,
And I can, you know, I can go ahead and take that mower off there, obviously, and, but the other stuff, I think a pretty good portion of that, we might use some of that grant funds
Right.
for.
okay, all right.
How many real mowers do you have
Currently, we have,
that you're wanting to replace? I mean,
just, one big one.
just one big.
Yes, sir.
And what's the cost to maintain that mower as far as the grinding of blades? There's what, 7 or 8 sets of blades?
Yeah, it's, 5, not on that one, but it's a 5 deck, 2,000 probably a
Mhm.
year. Then the manpower, setting the
And the more you're wanting to buy, is how much?
50,000.
Okay, and it's rotary.
Yeah, and it's a used, those,
I assume it's a diesel.
yes, sir. Yeah. Their, equipment's gone out,
Oh, my God.
skyrocketed, especially if it's specialty type equipment. It really has gone expensive.
Okay. Thank you, Lance. Any more thoughts or questions there? Extension certs, big one there is the vehicle for Rhonda. Good with that or questions?
I just think we're in a bad time of year to be on vehicles. I mean, I understand she needs it, but that younger.
They're nuts.
I don't know if they'll ever come down.
Probably won't, but we'll get used to it when they don't. Middle Beach or small.
You know, they're really the only, one of the only things I can think of are organizations that really put conservative West Texas thinking into our kids. And they take them so many places, and with that many kids using a personal vehicle, they're good kids, but you know, we fought in the car, till our parents stopped and gave us something we didn't need. We didn't think we needed. They don't always respect your personal vehicle. And I know it's been difficult for her, especially when you're driving a small vehicle their personal vehicle, to carry all those children in. And now
And all the supplies.
carrying supplies as well. She definitely does need it. It's not a want, I don't think. I think it's actually a need that's been there for a long time.
I'd like to discuss this later, because I've got on my notes to talk to her,
Yeah.
and she was gone. and I'd
Yeah,
like to
she
go-
was here but had to go. Okay.
Well,
And that's
the vehicle she got, I can only carry like 4 people.
Right.
And that's what I was getting
Usually
to.
carrying, or, well, not carrying, but there's like 17, 9. She's gonna have to start carrying.
Yeah.
And
And that's,
it's getting bigger.
It is.
and that's her
It's
personal
amazing.
vehicle
Yeah.
she's using.
So you have talked to her then?
Well, I talked to her, I talked to Greg.
Okay. Well, that's that, I mean, if y'all's taking care of it, I mean,
Yeah,
She
she
have, if you want to talk to her.
I asked Greg Wesley.
Yeah, and you know, this is a proposed budget that we never have been a part of since I've been here. The judge has always, with the auditor and treasurer at times, has always made a proposed budget, and then we would see it, and then we would come back after the proposed budget was certified to the county clerk's office, and then we'd make decisions from there. I think this is amazing myself, to give us that opportunity to see all of this even before the proposed budget. But the true fact of the matter is, any and all of this can be changed on the day that you set the rate. And so it's not that, I mean, we don't have to get into a rush and say, oh, this has got to go. We can do the more research, which we should do, and make sure that we're doing the right thing for all involved. I mean, we've got some great employees, great elected officials that are working with as best they can with what the legislature sends down to them. And so you know, we don't have to get into a rush. I appreciate that.
And keep in mind, a lot of these things are one-time only. Purchased it this year when minerals are up, and the tax rate is still 5 cents below last year's. Of course, some of them are gonna be permanent. So you can, that'll give you the opportunity to talk to Rhonda. All right, precinct 1, you're wanting to add an employee. And you've had several other things that have gone up.
Yes, sir.
fuel and oil, raw materials, operating supplies, maintenance and repairs. So, you want to talk about?
If I can get that additional employee, let me tell you, it's not just that my guys are older. It's not just that they're sick. I mean, there's because of COVID. Because, I mean, I've had them gone where I didn't have but one or two guys there. And it's whenever, we used to go out to the northeast part of the county at 1105, which we have about 15 miles of Caliche roads out there. We used to be able to leave our equipment because we could not finish the same day. There was just no way to do it. We can take 3 motor graders out there now, a water truck and a roller. It takes 5 guys to do that. And we can get it done in one day. And then we can go and take care of all of these other peripheral roads around that are closer to town, which we also used to be able to leave our equipment out there. But now we're having glass breakage. We're having to cut locks off of diesel tanks. We're having all kinds of things that they're doing to our machines, tearing them up, that's costing us money. And so not only is it because of also FMLA, where they can take 12 weeks off and you've got to put them back into a similar position. There is, I mean, I was shocked whenever my son stayed home 12 weeks because we have a new grandbaby from the VA. I mean, I just can't believe anybody do that. But that's what they have given them the opportunity to do. And all of us have that opportunity that are hourly wages. You can lose your employee for 12 weeks in a heartbeat. And also then if you do that, then your wife gets sick and there you go. You know, so they can take it and you can take it. So it makes it very difficult for us to get the work done that we need to do with 4 people. We have the same amount of roads as Precinct 2 and Precinct 3 do. I don't know if Doug intends to fill the position for 5 people or not. But I can absolutely, with all the things that are going on right now, we don't have bar ditches to mow so much. But if we did, we would be so far behind, we wouldn't know what to do. And then when it rains, you've got all of these roads to blame and the bar ditches to do. And so when you're talking about 126 miles, you're talking about double that for bar ditches. And so it's just so much more efficient and less damage to our machines to be able to have an additional employee there. And hopefully they don't take all this FMLA and don't get sick with COVID. Although I was at the hospital the other day to get a well exam and they're back to masks again because COVID is coming back. We got a new variant out there. And so that's the reason for that. If I can do that, I can reduce my part-time. That's $3,600. I mean, it's going to get to where you can't get part-time at the rate that we're paying $12 an hour now. And so I can reduce that rate back to $5,000, which would take off $7,600 off of my part-time and put me equal with Precinct 3.
Yeah, you bumped it up to 13.5.
I did.
Part-time. Yeah, that should be additional. This is all additional.
Yeah.
So.
And I just asked, I was telling you, we just put this on here just not long ago. I can definitely, I don't know about reducing fuel and oil or tires. I can reduce road materials. If we do, I actually, for the grant, the $600,000 grant, I only put a couple of short areas in that grant money for Precinct 1. Because I know Precinct 4 has got a huge mess out there and a lot more roads than I do. And so I'd hope that Precinct 4 would get the bulk of that money. I know Precinct 3 needs some money and so does Precinct 2, no doubt. And so I just put a couple of small projects in there, like 4131. That's a mile long, like the area out here on around where I live that's needed to be chip sealed for a very long time. Haven't chip sealed it since I've been in office. And so I think, those people out there, there's probably 20, 30 people there that never have had their roads chip sealed. And so I think it's about time that we do that. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Operating supplies is gonna be up. Safety and training, I can take that down some. Utilities are gonna be up. The electricity costs are going up. Maintenance and repairs, I don't see that going down. Building and ground supplies, I can take that off. I've always put, I think, $2,500 in for equipment.
Yeah.
And I can do that.
Any comments, thoughts on precinct 1?
So what is you have the full staff, correct? This will be an additional position created.
That's correct.
Okay. Run it by me again as to why you want to do that.
Because we used to be able to leave our equipment out on 1105, 1247, 1297, 62, 12, I think 80. I can't remember the road number that's out there. We got 3 or 4 roads out there that are 30 miles from town. We have had people just go out. They go all the way out to that overlook. If you've ever been out there, there's more traffic on that road now than ever before, and more people that are going out there because they found out the scenic view that's way out there at the very end. In fact, it's over in Fisher County, and we're finding that they're cutting locks, stealing diesel, breaking glasses on our motor grader. We've had that done. That's where we bring them in, and that's a long way to drive a motor grader. And there's no way to grade those roads with 2 motor graders and a water truck and a roller in one day. We can do it for 3. And whenever we're mowing, we found that we can take a 15-foot and a smaller mower, and we can mow all our ditches all around one time without having to go back out there and pick up that equipment or leave that equipment out there for somebody to tear up. And just like right now, I've had a boy that's off, and he's been off, and he's in his 40s. He's been off for COVID twice. He has been off with his spouse that's had first surgery and now emergency surgery, and won't be back at the earliest until next week. If we didn't have part-time, you can't get anything done without employees that you need to get the equipment. They can't run to 3 different pieces of equipment,
I just wanted to hear.
Yeah.
How many do each of y'all have? Jeff, how many do you have?
Supposed to have 5 and a foreman.
I've got 4 and 4.
And I've got 3 and a foreman.
I think I've got 4.
But there's a big difference in the miles of the road that versus what I have and Sean has, and then precinct 1 has the least amount of roads, and then precinct 2.
Not according to fixed assets. We've all got about the same, except for you. You've got 250.
It's not. I don't know what fixed access says, but it's wrong.
Well, I've driven all mine, and it's pretty close. I've driven every mile of mine to make sure what I had, and it's pretty close to what fixed assets is. 126 miles.
Tony, how many you have?
43.
Any idea?
243, 246.
think yours is 243.
Okay.
245.
So any further discussion on precinct one? Any thoughts? Okay, precinct two. You got the lights and outlets. That was your big one, but you're gonna get
That's
that.
probably gonna get done, but I'm trying to get them put heat inside the building for them this winter. And I don't think it's gonna cost you.
I can tell you that infrared heat, like what I have and like what Sean has, is gonna run around 1,500 just for and that's if it hadn't inflated. Just for a 125,000 BTU heater. That's hanging heater now.
Well, it's not infrared, it actually blows to keep everything warm there. But infrared, you have to get underneath it.
I mean, you don't.
And, yeah.
If you'll come out at my precinct anytime, I promise you that those infrared heaters will heat that building up just, I mean, in a little while, because what it's doing is heating the concrete, heating the machinery, the walls and everything else, and it gets very warm very quick. Yours is insulated now, isn't it?
Yeah.
With foam?
Very fun, yeah.
Please come while it's cold. I guarantee you it'll do the job that you're wanting to do.
Good putting in for you.
My guys. My guys hung. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
So we're gonna leave that in there too, because we don't know where it's at yet.
Yeah. It won't be for lots.
Right, I'll just change it.
Because I'm getting that done now. So.
Right. Well, once it's in the budget book, it's.
Another thing you may want to think about is rolling blackouts and you have no heat.
Right.
And with those, you don't need it. You don't need electricity.
Precinct three. Got some changes, but cost of doing business.
As mainly fuel and maintenance and repairs. Good Lord, they beat me up this time.
Yes, sir.
All of us.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
That's the gonna do.
Nature of the beast.
But anyway, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Precinct four, you're requesting additional road materials. That's your biggest one, that one, and a loader.
Yes.
And I'm the one who put in there, suggest taking it from Road and Bridge. So, but what are your thoughts?
This was my only deal. I hated to just take well, first of all, I need to make a decision, and I want y'all's input and approval on this loader. I just don't want to take it all out in 1 year. They've given me lease options. I don't want to lease. I want to have something at the end of this. And I've asked for them to finance it for 5 years, and I haven't got that paperwork. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty close to the same as leasing. And they actually sent me 2 leases, one for a 3-year and one for a 5-year. And I think one of those might have been supposed to have been changed. And I'm just waiting on to hear back from the guy. But if I can go ahead and give them the go ahead to do it, it's still going to be the first of the year or after before I even see it.
Sure.
And he'd offered $75,000 for my current loader and said that if I went ahead and made the purchase, that he would put the tires that I'm needing on this machine. He would put them on it, and I wouldn't have to do it.
On the new one?
On my old one.
Oh, okay.
He said I was gonna keep it until that other one come in, but he would go ahead and put the tires on it instead of us having to put them on it. Just gonna go out the door in 6 months.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know that your equipment has been not maintained, been used, protected. And
Because I have another issue with the truck that's had the motor blown in it. The motor now is $42,500 and something. And that's just the quote that I've gotten. That's not what they ran into while they were changing it out. or any of that. We had the truck appraised, they appraised the truck as is for $7,200. I can't make myself buy a motor for $42,000 when I can spend another $20,000 or $30,000 and get another truck. And again, that's where I want us to beat our heads together and find out what's the best option for my precinct for the county.
Have you found any trucks?
There was two that they sent. They sent me an email on. They were out of Abilene, out of that Circle.
Oh, Circle D.
Yeah, Circle D. And I have not gone and looked at them, or I have not even pursued that. I wanted to wait until we discussed it, and actually, I'm asking for permission. If you're in agreement with that.
You mean for next year's budget, or you're talking about now?
No, on the truck, I don't know what to do, what's best. This is.
Now, you're in a bind.
It's been a bind. It's, there's many issues.
Because you don't have a truck, do you?
I've got two trucks, and so if I take, one of them's got my water trailer on it, the other one's the belly dump, and that just doesn't, I need at least two belly dumps to make any kind of progress. And I don't like having to swap that water truck back and forth. I'm afraid somebody's gonna get hurt. I know we've done it, but.
I know where some belly dumps are. Been out of
Oh, my goodness.
It's all well and good, but you need a truck to pull it, right?
Got those two.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else that we really need to start considering, and I started doing it a long time ago. There aren't any professional type truck drivers left. And if we don't go to automatics, we're going to be spending a ton of money on clutches constantly. And when there's trucks are in there, and it's hard to get a truck out within 2 weeks. And a motor grader is 6 months long, right? It's crazy. But if you've got an automatic, they're used to driving automatic vehicles, pickups, cars, whatever. You don't have that clutch issue. And so I would, if we can find them, I don't know if we can find them or not, but I think more and more people are going, these commercial drivers are going to automatics. So if you can find one, you're going to have a lot less trouble going forward with maintenance on those trucks.
Wasn't the one that you had fixed up, was it automatic?
Yes. $11,000 and something dollars.
And
That's doable.
what was it?
40,000.
That's exactly right.
And that's where I'm asking, what do y'all, on the loader? I mean,
I'd like to see the finance charges. That, not for leasing, or just talking
that's
about
what I'm
actually
waiting
buying
on.
it out. Outright.
Then you gotta have one.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I agree.
well, I'll bring those to our next court. Let's get that on the agenda.
Okay. Well, we can discuss it during this part of the agenda.
And I would need to, like I said, if we're gonna get it, I mean, when I get the ball rolling.
Agree.
They're hard to come up with.
So, thoughts on taking the additional road material and the road out of road bridge reserves?
We don't know what our bridge reserves are. It's hard to make a decision.
Sure. We can have those numbers next week, so something to think about in the
it
meantime.
ought to be somewhere around 3 million, because nothing's took anything out of it except that $500,000 last year.
That we didn't tax for.
I agree.
I wanna say it was 2.5 a week ago.
I just want to see what it really is.
So that we need to discuss that next week.
It also depends how much money y'all turn back this year.
Sure.
All right, I'm going home.
So the best bet is to look at what the cash balances were as of December 31st, 2021, And that would give your most accurate reserve numbers because there was no more budget left to spend in December 2021.
I took 90,000 out of it the other day for maintain repair.
So,
It was next week.
Exactly. Courthouse security and justice court funds, those are minimum 25, 5,200, 5,300 for courthouse security. That's gonna be, maintenance agreements and things like that, chambers.
How much money is in that reserve?
It's about 60, around 60, it's come down, it's more like 30 in it. We'd have to look
Which-
at it. Courthouse security,
I think 30-ish.
and that, we can take it from there.
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
But I also want, these are cash balances. These are active revolving. Y'all
Sure.
keep using the term reserve.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a very misnomer.
funds.
It's cash balances.
Right.
So if
It's
you're
leaving.
using that money to fund the budget, there's not gonna be that much money in there when you want to use it. So please remember next week, and I'll go over it again, when I give you the road and bridge cash balance, that means we still gotta fund this entire year with that money.
Right.
So please change the
We'll
reserve.
know what the fund balance is at the end of the day,
Thank you.
at the end of the year. Okay. Golf course. They were asking for a cart pass, restrooms, or pro shop. Now, there's an offer on the table to fund half of the, pro shop. Whatever, up to $1 million. So we put up $500,000, they'll put up $500,000. And that's been on the table for a while. I haven't brought it up before because we haven't been in position to be able to do that. Also looking to replace the ball picker and ball washer, about $6,500. And there's, let's see what your thoughts are about moving the employees in the budget under the parks. It wouldn't affect the contract with Williams. What are your thoughts about that? Spoken on Lance. Lance is willing, but of course it would involve additional funds towards Lance, because I wouldn't want to take another department on without being compensated for it. And if we do that, do we keep the current department head salary the same or do something different?
There, if you move it under the parks, does not make Lance the department.
Correct, it would. There are several reasons why to do this. One, Lance has got the experience with golf courses. He's got all the licenses. Of course, it's not, like I said, it's not gonna affect the contract with Williams. This would just be the staff there in the pro shop.
So we still have a contract with somebody.
Yes. Yep.
I think we spent enough money on this golf course already. I don't recommend any of this.
Well, there's a large group of people that use that golf course, and they just put $100,000 into it. So there's that. The cart paths are horrible.
They are.
They are absolutely destroyed.
We've talked about them for years, 15 years, and never have been, I mean, we've looked at a lot of different ways to get it done. They're all expensive.
From what I understand, they don't stand the cart pass anyway.
Oh,
they can't.
They don't. They can't. It tears the carts up if they do. That's what the marshal's supposed to do, but there's not one. So supposed to make sure that they stay where they're supposed to stay. There is a lot of people that are playing out there. There's a lot of money that's been given by the community, by individuals, to keep that golf course going. The usage has gone way up over time. It's paying more for itself than it ever has.
If you talk to Chris out at the college, he runs a pro shop out there, he'll tell you we absolutely need 2 courses, especially after the work that we did out there and had it shut down. They were completely overwhelmed and were not able to keep up. So he would disagree with not doing any work out there.
We're just getting the water fixed.
Right.
Where that cost is going to go down.
You're right.
For maintenance there.
Right.
Hopefully our contract will increase.
Get the college on it.
Yes.
Don't make it too.
You know, we actually did that with the Coliseum.
Yeah.
The county had the Coliseum for years and years. We saved $1 million a year. We paid them $1 million a year for about 3 years to take it.
Yeah.
And now they are using asset sales tax that we were able to give over to them. And they have ran it very adequately since that time. And I thank God for that. I wish we could do what you're saying, but fool me once, you know. Well, that's a wide elephant out there, but thank God they were able to do it. I wish we could find a way to improve those cart paths without it costing. I mean, we're looking at, what, $150,000?
Yeah.
For cart paths.
Yeah. Unless y'all are willing to donate materials.
And you're speaking of millings, I said.
No, yeah.
Maybe because of fuel being so expensive that the TxDOT would allow us to have more millings for something like this, just like what they were giving to you, because other counties said, no, it's too expensive, we're not gonna get it. And so potentially next year we would, or maybe next year, who knows?
If not millings, then seal coat instead of concrete.
You're talking about
Rock and.
You'd have to repair what's there first to
Yeah.
make it smooth.
Yeah.
Before you did the chip seal. And then you're talking about super heavy equipment on that course and huge equipment that.
And we pretty trees.
Have you cut down enough trees? We cut down enough trees.
I'm just throwing ideas out there. All the
A
experts.
fence and cows would be very beneficial out there.
Oh, yeah, goats or ducks.
So what's your pleasure there? What do you want to do?
I think it sounds to me like we need to do some more research and find out more.
That $500,000 just
That is a lot.
blows me away.
Okay.
But you're talking about a lot of things there. I mean, when you're talking about restrooms, cart paths.
At the end of the day, it's $500,000.
Yeah, it is. And so what are you talking about as far as pro shop is concerned? $1 million, is that what you?
No, so I think they were thinking 150 for the cart paths and then the remainder, what, 350? So it'd be, in all honesty, it'd be about 700,000 with the match. So we'd put 350 and they'd put the other 350.
So 500 was just the start.
500 is both, the cart paths and the restroom
Oh.
or pro shop.
But they're not willing to help with that at this point. They
With
just
the
want
pro shop.
the pro shop, right?
Yep.
And what's your thoughts on that? I mean, you've looked at this. I haven't even talked to them about the pro shop.
Well, potentially going, part of where that slab is, not the whole thing, rebuilding on top of that area.
So tearing down the one that's there now.
Yeah, and the restrooms that are there, it's got the plumbing and all for the septic, for the, whole building, and then, all the water. Well, we'd have to redo water, but you could build the restrooms inside.
Okay. And what about restrooms? Are we talking about one restroom or 3 restrooms?
That would be the, well, the initial thought was a restroom over on 7 or 8, redoing that one.
There in the corner.
Right. On the northeast, southeast corner.
Yes.
So, but we discussed the pro shop also.
Gotcha.
So, and all this isn't very initial, it's just throwing it out there, not a lot of details on it yet.
Again, I would suggest that we go with the restrooms from the, if we do any, we should go with the restrooms from the forest department that are monolithically poured. Even the roof is concrete. It looks like shingles. Go look at those out there in Winston and North Park. They are indestructible.
Now they're solid.
They are.
So, want more information there?
If they
or
rip
we-
the parts off of that wall, I'll put it back.
You're
That's
saying
all.
no.
I'm saying no.
You're saying no. Where are you at?
Back to you.
I think we need more research. Myself. Maybe we can do some of it.
All right, so airport, big one there is, jet fuel truck. We're kind of in the same situation we were with the gas truck, where we had, a truck that was so old. It had a spark and a leak that could have blown it up. I don't think we're quite to that point, but it's in bad shape. He needs a new jet fuel truck. You can't really move those jets over to the, pump station. You have to have the truck. And so it's in bad shape. And he said they were about 75 to 100,000. And that is, that's a big money maker right there. That jet fuel truck.
But we've had to replace it before. And you just get a used one from Abfuel, but they have gone up just like every other thing. And that jet fuel is volatile. And so you want to make sure that you don't have something that's going to cause a real safety issue.
Any thoughts?
There's no way he can get the money without it coming out of.
No, the other money that he has to be used specifically for those areas. And the one small one that he could use, there's not near enough.
Are you looking at grants or anything for this?
We never could find one, but I think he's looking all the time.
Yep.
I haven't visited with him about it. I'd like to visit with him.
EMS, education coordinator, infection control officer, compliance officer, that's all one position. Since we voted on the committee recommendations, we're gonna take that 165,000 of capital expense for the expansion of the building, go in that direction. So that brings the total down to 135,780 for his requests. You can see he's got increases in multiple lines.
This is something that he's been asking for a very long time, and he doesn't ask, he does it, I don't know how he does it, but he does it efficiently in comparison to, we were looking at leasing, or having a company come in and we're paying them so much a month, and that company's gone. We would have been in a 9-line bind again if it hadn't have been for us getting Jason. I don't think there's a better EMS director in the country. As far as efficiency, and if you want numbers or knowledge, he's got them all. And the people of this community, that's one thing that I've never heard anybody say we don't need. it's, you talk to the people that use the health insurance, it's the same thing. They couldn't do it. We've got so many people that do not have the finance to go and get the things that they need. That is supplied to them by the health department as well as like the EMS. But I think that it's, educating, having your own educational officer is saving us some dollars because those guys stay here. And that's the only way you're gonna get them to stay here. Things are added to EMS requirements all the time. I would like for us, while we have an opportunity to do it, because oilfield will not sustain what we're doing now, it never has.
Okay, along the line, since you brought that up. You got all this stuff, and we'll just use the education coordinator. Whole field goes to 5, okay? He still gets $100,000 a year.
That's not the total salary,
No.
that's not
He
salary
was
for
saying
that
that's coming down to
person, that's
75.
all the benefits, that's everything, yeah.
So still.
Right.
I've said this before, when it comes to it, you know where you get the money. When the whole thing goes kaput.
Yeah.
And that's my issue with doing anything that you say it's a one-time expense.
I didn't say all of them, some of it is.
Yes, that's my issue, because sooner or later, you either cut programs, cut departments, people can't pay for it, okay? And go to the taxpayers, which we all are one. That's my issue with this, with the budget, even remotely looking like this.
Okay.
So,
We understand that. We do have new lines of revenue that we've never had. And we're getting more and more of those. With this new project that's out here on Camp Springs Road, with the solar project, we're gonna see more and more of those. We're gonna see more and more battery projects. Every one of those are new lines of revenue that we have, millions of dollars that they paid to the county over the years, and gonna continue to do so.
that's the other issue, you know, and that's what, I mean, Gary Wilson gets about big payments. You know, the battery, what they call it, kinetic energy deal,
Yeah.
it's roughly gonna be 60,000 a year. That's all well and good. 10 years, 600 grand, but that 60,000 from year to year to fund some of anything in this county is a drop in the bucket.
Oh, that's true.
That's just my issue.
Cumulative, they're bringing in a lot of money.
Yes, but you don't realize it because you get it on a yearly basis.
Oh, I agree. But it is there.
It is.
And it's going to continue. Thank God that we've got some extra lines.
You know, and unfortunately, we have these situations where we continue to get mandates down from the state that we have to increase certain areas. And not just from the state, but federally, we get hit hard, and such as EMS. You know, they have Medicare, Medicaid, I don't know how many others that they have to keep up with every year. You know, and, you know, how do you do that? The clerk's office are mandated to do multiple things also as well. You know, we've got to make a decision. Do we want to stay in the position where we are, where we don't improve anything at all, or do we want to start improving? You know, and getting ahead, because if we continue to not do anything, we're going to fall further and further behind. And yes, it's going to cost us. Everything goes up. Everything is going up. It went up. Some things went up 100 to 150% this year. Somehow we have to take care of that. There are areas that, you know, we just don't have the manpower to take care of everything. And that's where a lot of these requests are, as far as personnel goes. So we've got to decide, do we want a penny pinch, or do we want to have good facilities with good people for
our community the best that we can provide for the money that we can.
I don't have an issue with that. But the expense continues. That is my point.
It's going to continue.
It is. And you're right, the oil field goes up and down like it always does.
And when it does go up, there's an opportunity there for the minerals to pay for those things that we can't do.
Yes, and I understand that, but still the expenses keep on.
Some of them do.
And that's my issue.
I understand that.
You know,
I do.
just because you go buy a new vehicle, the expenses continue. Maybe
Absolutely
not
they do.
the same expenses.
Right.
But they continue. And if you lose your job, your wages get cut. That expense is still there.
Sure.
And that's my point.
Sure. His loader is a perfect example of that though. He can't operate without it.
Mm-mm.
You know, that's an example of, in many of these areas, not all of them, but, you know, many areas through here, if we don't have that, we can't operate. And if we get to that point to where we want to decide, do we want to do without things, then where do you start? You know?
So when the money runs out, that's where you start.
Okay.
Because if it does, we will have to cut. We've been down this road before. You
Yeah.
cut people, you cut services, we did our best, and we didn't have to do that.
You're right, and we don't have to do that now, we're in a good position.
I understand that, but I'm looking down the road.
I am too. I really am, I'm looking down the road as well.
Okay, I'm done.
All right, thanks, sir. All right, what's your pleasure on EMS then? Do you want to keep that position in there, or do you want to cut it out?
I'm gonna cut it out.
Well, Jason, I talked to Jason, he said he's already doing this in the house anyway, and he said he could keep doing it in the house, so.
He can keep doing it now, so.
That's the kind of way I feel.
You can't put so much on a person though until they decide that it's not worth it. And then where you get an EMS director from, because I know a lot of counties that can't find it. Very difficult thing, but I mean, it's up to y'all. It's up to 3 at least.
All right, so, on this last page, it lists personnel changes and requests, and it lists all of them. So, yeah, there's 3 of you that have said, remove EMS. What do you want to do with precinct 1?
Well, I'm sorry, Terry, you have an employee that has them issues, but I just don't think it's time to be having people.
That's not just one. Ted was out for 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 times. Tommy was out with his wife with cancer for a year. I mean, in and out. I say a year, 9 months. It's not just mine, and it'll be yours too. With FMLA, have a child, they can take that 12 weeks off. You can't stop them, and that's going to harm you. But you've got approximately the same rows I've got, mileage wise, and you got 5. If you want to go to 4, I'll try to keep doing with 4. Can you do it with 4?
I've got 4 with a foreman.
No,
Five.
I got 3 with a foreman.
Okay. What?
I don't believe it's needed either.
Well, then if it's not needed, neither does precinct 2 or 3 need 5 people. Just because they've got it now doesn't mean they need it going forward.
It's already,
It's already there and
We're
making
talking
money.
about adding things.
Okay, then let's take some off. We're talking about
Tell
the
you
oil
what,
field. and
let's set this aside for today.
Okay.
We'll come back next week and start fresh. Okay. So I make a motion to adjourn for the second. All in favor?
I mean, just add two. I could go. No, it's not a-
Which one?
You try.
Took hours. Right. Especially having this in front of me to say.
Before you stay.
I stopped saying that. I said you could look at your salary schedule.
You said that I'm gonna make it.
I'm the county.
AMS paramedic.
West Texas. Yeah.
That's what you said.
But the camera didn't catch it all, Dana, and if you could watch, you could have come. If you could have watched, then you could have come up here. I was just trying to get Commissioners Court to understand, to look at the entire salary schedule. Don't confront me about something I didn't say, and you didn't hear the entire thing.
I was actually working, I had been seeing patient this entire time, so I got here as soon as I could to try to speak, and I didn't get here in time. I work all the time.
And I don't work all day.
Ladies, let's take that somewhere else.
No.